Mygavan and Melanine, and well met indeed. My name is Bane. I am the head of the Wainriders development team, and this is a demonstration 1v1 battle in the Wainriders mod. If you're curious about mod progress, by the way, of the development, it is more or less finished. The 7 factions that will be in the initial release are done, the rosters are done, stats are more or less finished as well. It's just a matter of unit cards and UI, things like that remain incomplete, remain placeholder. But quickly, let's just explain what the battle is. I am playing as the High Elves, and my opponent is playing as Angmar. And if you look here quickly at the numbers, you'll notice that, well, the High Elven army is incredibly small. Now, one of the things that I'm doing, well, I and the rest of the development team here have done with the High Elves is that you have a faction that is extremely quality, but very limited on the numbers. You are talking about people whose lifespans go into the thousands of years easily. You have people who remember the second age, or with particular characters, even the first age. And you have extremely elite warriors, but you are going to be lacking in numbers against human factions, and especially against the orcs, which aren't on this battlefield, obviously, but you've got a lot of numbers from Angmar. If you're wondering sort of the basic roster, what the High Elves are, the High Elves are an amalgamation faction of the Galadrim of Lorien, the Elves of Linden, and the Elves of Imladris. So rather than trying to split those factions up into 3, which I felt was something that I would have a very hard time making 3 unique Elven factions in addition to the Woodland realm, which Vanilla TDD has done and tried. Instead, I thought I would combine those 3 factions, even if it didn't necessarily make sense in the lore per se, into one faction. And the High Elves, as far as their strengths go, are a close combat, very strong in melee faction. That's what they do. They're not strong in terms of their archers. You have a general as your archer, and you also have these Galadrim warriors, which are a hybrid bow infantry unit with limited ammo. They are not a full-on archer. So they're very strong in melee, but their bow ammo is relatively limited, and your only true archer is your general, this Eldar Council here. So, what do you have? Well, you've got Sailors of the Grey Haven over here at Linden Champions. Linden Champions are your shock infantry, and Sailors of the Grey Haven are javelin-armed medium infantry, your lowest tier melee unit available. At least melee infantry, not counting things like phalanx units and the like. And I didn't bring the whole roster of the High Elves, so these are just some of the units that are present. You don't see Noldor Heroes, for example, which are your elite cavalry. You have Lorien Outriders instead, your light sword cavalry option. So some of the units for the High Elves are not necessarily present, but a lot of their infantry is. These Noldor Vanguard is being punished by Hillmen and Barrow-wights and forward-wave warriors. I should explain probably, as this battle is going very, very quickly, I should explain what Angmar is as well. So Angmar, at the time of the Wainrider invasion from the east, Angmar actually existed. It was headed by the Witch King, obviously, whose goal was the destruction of the Kingdom of Arthur, the Kingdom of Arthedain, Kings Arthedain, Cardolan, and Rudar. And he is more or less succeeded by the time of the Wainriders invasion from the east, though Arthedain still remains, and Arthedain will be a playable faction, and they're the last remnant of Arnor. And Angmar here is a very mannish-focused faction. It's all of its units are men or wraiths and evil spirits. You do not have orcs directly for the Angmar faction. There will be sort of allies that will certainly in the lore be present in Angmar's armies. Orcs from the Misty Mountains, and the Misty Mountains will be its own faction. But Angmar itself is a mannish faction dominated by men. You've got essentially a mix of wraiths, of these evil spirits, things like Barrow-wights, and obviously wraiths over here, And you've also got your Hillman troops, which are sort of your light skirmishing troops, your slingers, your javelins. Sorry about the Discord notification. Your slingers, your archers, your shock infantry, your sort of even some of your heavier high damage infantry, but you really lack armor. And you're gonna the morale as well is going to be nerfed for these types of units. So you're gonna lack armor and you're gonna lack morale for your root hour troops. You're gonna make up for it in damage. And then you've also got your cultic troops. What I mean by that is more professional troops that are under the sway of the Witch King, under the sway of the Shadow Cult, of worshipping Morgoth. And these types of troops will be more traditional heavy infantry, which will appear for the faction. They will have high morale. They will scare nearby infantry. That's in general what Angmar is. It's a very infantry-focused faction. Um, things like these, Root Hour champions with their unique sword, which has some armor-piercing damage. You don't see them now because they routed off the field. These Hillmen over here, the damage looks low, but clubs and one-handed mace-armed units like these Forward Waith warriors over here, as you can see with their two-handed mace, those units have anti-infantry bonuses. I believe it's 20 bonus for the Hillmen and 30 for the Forward Waith warriors. So you are dealing with a faction that is very good in melee, very strong in melee, can bring lots of numbers. It's not very good on the cavalry front. And I believe we did kind of miss or not really focus on the Witch King's unique bodyguard unit, which is a unit of heavy shot cavalry. But otherwise, Angmar's roster is lacking a lot of cavalry. But very, very focused on infantry, very focused on high damage units, and they have a lot of scare effect units that can affect the morale of your enemy. So you're essentially counting on a big push of infantry, getting around the flanks, using your scare units to lower the morale, and hopefully routing them off the field. And there is another one of your more professional troops, these Grim Spears, who are not Hillmen, that sort of make up your standard battle line as Angmar. Though this is your lower end of spears for sure. And these this unit, my opponent kind of forgot about. He said he forgot about them until the end of the battle. He was planning on using them to support his cavalry engagements early on, but unfortunately, you sometimes forget about units. I've forgotten about, in battles, in regular GDD, I've forgotten about 3 entire units of Clan Axeman once. So, forgetting about one unit is pretty normal, it's to be expected. And these Grim Spears go in against the Galadrim warriors. I think it's all Galadrim warriors over here. And then the Eldar Council, as you can see, with their two-handed swords charging in, and they're going to finish off those Grim Spears. And then the only thing left are going to be these Barrow Wights. And the Barrow Wights are extremely tanky, taking a cavalry charge in the back there. They have 400 health per man. They do very little damage, and you get very few kills. They are capped at 2. And they're very slow. But this is a unit that can last an incredible amount of time, that acts as an effective wall that can block off your enemy from advancing in any particular sector. These units are going to be exceptionally useful in siege battles. And despite the result of this battle, which it's going to be a high Elven victory, despite the results, previous battle I played as Angmar and my same opponent played as the High Elves, and I as Angmar won. So there's definitely a fair shake. Both Angmar and the High Elves had a fair chance of beating each other, I believe. Certain things are up for tweaking. I feel like Spear Infantry are a little weak right now in terms of their attack. Probably compensate for that with an increase in their price slightly, but you get the idea. The balancing the stats of these units is more or less finished. Nothing additional is going to be added, and I'm very excited to release the mod sometime in November is what the plan is. But of course, I've got a new semester coming up, post exams, So we will see how, how much time I actually have to mod and to release this thing. After that, there's going to be 6 more factions released, and I'm just really excited to see where this project goes. I am going to edit this because the Barrowlights are going to take a while to kill, with still 114 men left, so I am going to cut it here, and then I will get back to you when the battle is over. And here's the battle results screen. My voice might sound a little bit scratchy, by the way. I haven't been feeling myself. But as you can see, the numbers, not just the numbers in terms of men in the unit, but also the actual numbers of unit cards that each side was able to bring, is quite disparate. Angmar's army was considerably larger, but the skill gap in terms of stats between humans and elves is going to be significant enough that I feel that the high elves are definitely a viable faction to play both in pitch battles and in sieges, and I feel it's going to be a popular one. I think I'm very satisfied with where the elfin factions, or where the second elven faction, when that's released, and the high elves are in terms of their place in the game. I think it's an interesting dynamic to have a faction that can be so vastly outnumbered on the field and still win. Um, it's not the By the way, we did not bring the exact same army comps for the 2 battles that we played. The first battle where I played Angmar and he played the High Elves, but his army was similar in most regards. The Barrow-wights were not included, as was the Grimspear, and I had a few more units of Hillmen and things like that. But ultimately, uh, not a huge change, though my army was a couple units bigger than his. So I really think this battle was quite interesting. It was quite close for a long time. And as you can see, I still lost over half my army as the elves. So I was down to 300 or so elves from essentially just the Galadrim units and my general. So look forward to more previews of Wainriders. By the way, let me know if you're more interested in just faction previews that show the roster, or you want battle replays to go along with it. I'm not going to show the full factions for Angmar and the High Elves, just out of respect for the amount of time that would take. But if people want to see that, I will definitely be willing to show that sort of thing and go in depth on High Elves, on Angmar, on Rovanion, on the Wainriders, on Gondor, on Dol Guldur, and any of the other factions that are going to be present in the Wainriders mod. Anyway, I will catch you all later.